In 1959, director Billy Wilder and star Marilyn Monroe gave the world a cross-dressing comedy that hits all the right notes.
In 2023, Maker's Mark proves that the 46th time is the charm.
The film is Some Like It Hot.
The whiskey is Maker's Mark 46.
And we'll review them both. This is
the Film and Whiskey Podcast. Welcome to the Film and Whiskey Podcast, where each week we review a classic movie and a glass of whiskey. I'm Bob Book.
I'm Brad G.
And this week we are revisiting one of our favorite movies from season 1, Billy Wilder's Some Like It Hot.
Bob, I was thinking about this movie before we watched it again, and I was like, I think I could watch this movie, just the soundtrack. Like, I could blindfold myself, listen to the movie, and it still might be one of the funniest comedies I've ever heard.
Do you know what's hilarious about you saying that is I took a note as I was watching this, because the movie is set in 1929. So right after the advent of sound in movies. And it's really apparent that Billy Wilder is doing a lot to honor the early 30s screwball comedies, but he's also doing a lot to honor like the late silent era comedies. There's a lot of really physical comedy in this. And the note that I took was, I could watch this movie with the sound off and still understand what's going on.
So you'll watch it with the sound
off. Yeah.
I'll watch it with my monitor turned off, and we'll report back on what the experience was
exactly.
like.
That's hilarious, man. All right, so if you are not familiar, what we're doing this season on Film and Whiskey is we're going back and revisiting all of our movies from season 1. Brad, we're doing it mostly.
Sucked.
Yeah, those episodes are real bad. I would say that the sound quality gets marginally better in the latter half of season 1. But I was listening to some of these episodes back, and it is like unbearably harsh sounding.
Yeah.
And we just didn't have our feet wet yet in the podcasting arena. So I think we've got a little bit more seasoned since then.
A little bit. I mean, at this point, we're talking about watching movies without actually watching the movie. So like,
we're so good at it. We don't even need the pictures anymore.
We're pretty avant-garde about our movie watching nowadays.
All right, so as I remember from season 1, and Brad, I don't currently have our final scores from our first watch through pulled up. I think I gave this movie like either a 9 or a 9.5, and I had talked even at that point about how it was not my favorite Billy Wilder movie, and it wasn't as good as The Apartment, and blah, blah, blah. And you know what? I still stand by a lot of what I remember saying about this movie, which is it's really hard to give a really dumb, stupid, silly comedy a 10 out of 10. But damn it, if this movie isn't just perfect, Brad.
It is perfectly written, perfectly acted, perfectly like the sound design is perfect. I love this movie, Bob. I think I gave it a 10. It might have been one of my first 10s that I ever handed out. Bob, this is a 10 out of 10 movie.
I laughed out loud at so many parts of this movie. And, you know, I remember when we were watching through Sabrina, which is another Billy Wilder movie, that I talked about how in Sabrina, you can go into that wanting any kind of comedy and you will get it from that movie. There's really dark humor, there's sarcasm, there's slapstick. That's all here as well. And I feel like it reaches like its pinnacle with this movie. I couldn't believe the amount of silent era slapstick comedy, and then, you know, you juxtapose that with the really fast kind of rat-a-tat of screwball comedies from the 30s, and then you get your like really racy, boundary-pushing comedy that reminds you that this movie's made in the late 1950s. It's just like, it's the platonic ideal of a silly comedy, and it works so well.
Yeah, and at the top you have Jack Lemmon and Tony Curtis. Jack Lemmon, one of the best comedic actors of all time.
I mean, for my money, one of the best dramatic actors of all time, too. He's just fantastic.
Yeah, no, he's absolutely incredible. Now, you tell me, I don't know as much about Mr. Curtis on the other half there. Was he a comedic actor? Was he more of a dramatic actor?
He was more of a dramatic actor that dabbled in comedies. So the year before this was made, he made a movie called The Defiant Ones with Sidney Poitier. And that movie was like a straight drama. And it was about, race relations, and really great movie. But Tony Curtis was kind of always going for his Oscar. And I feel like every once in a while he'd make a movie like this. And it's just hilarious that now this is the movie that he's best remembered for. If you know anything about Tony Curtis, it's probably because either you've seen this movie or you are familiar with his daughter, Jamie Lee Curtis. That's pretty much the only things that I feel like people talk about Tony Curtis for anymore. But man, is he good in this movie or what?
He is so incredible. I'll just remind everybody of the fun fact that when he plays the Shell Jr., billionaire, he's trying to be Cary Grant, or use his accent to make fun of Cary Grant. Mm-hmm. And when he asked Cary Grant what he thought of the accent, because he sounded like Cary Grant, Cary Grant's response was, "I do not sound like that."
The funny thing, and I don't think we mentioned this in the first go round with this movie, but as I'm listening to him do the Cary Grant thing, it's such a funny little joke. It's like a running bit, obviously, in the movie. But Cary Grant was not famous in Hollywood at the time that this movie is set. And so then you get that great little line from Jack Lemmon where he goes, "Nobody sounds like that." And of course, yep. it's the voice that belongs to the most famous person in Hollywood by 1959.
When did Cary break into Hollywood? Was it early 40s?
No, it was the early 30s. Like he was okay. One of his first big movies was I think it's called She Done Him Wrong. It's a Mae West movie. But I mean, somewhere between 31 and 33, I think, is when Cary Grant really started to get introduced to American audiences.
Okay. Yeah, Cary Grant's incredible. We need to watch more Cary Grant movies. But B, Lemmon and Curtis are great. Mm-hmm. But I think we talked about it. Monroe in this movie is just electric.
Yeah. Honestly, Brad, I think we need to introduce some structure into our episode here, or we're just going to gush over people for 50-something minutes and then call it a day. Yep. If you have not seen Some Like It Hot, first of all, you got to watch it. It's a hilarious movie. But I have to say, Brad, we've watched at least 6 or 7 Billy Wilder movies at this point for the podcast, including this one, the first time. I think I have more of an appreciation for it now on the other side of all those Billy Wilder movies than I did when we first watched it in season 1.
Yeah, 100%. We dabbled in, it feels like we've dabbled in him, but now that we've gotten 6 movies under our belt, coming back to this was a bit of a revelation. We've talked about his obsession with suicide when we were back in season 7, mm-hmm, right? Mm-hmm. And fascinatingly enough, Tony Curtis making jokes about killing himself in this movie.
You got to have at least one. It's an obligatory thing with Billy Wilder.
It's an obligatory Wilder trope, I suppose. Yeah, coming back to this after watching, 6 of his films now, this feels like the height of his comedic writing. Mm-hmm. I think that The Apartment does strike the perfect balance between drama and comedy that not a lot of movies are able to do. But this one doesn't attempt to be a drama in any way at all. No. I guess it tries to be a rom-com a little bit, but even there, I'm like, yeah, sure, there's Sugar and Joe kind of falling in love, but this is one of the best comedies ever written, Bob.
All right. So like I said, if you have not seen Some Like It Hot, you got to go watch this movie. But we say that especially because we're going to move into our first segment of the day, which we call Brad Explains.
Brad's going to give us the movie plot with only 60 seconds ticking on the clock. So let's go ahead and hear your take with this little segment that we call Brad Explains.
Brad Explains is the part of the podcast where Brad breaks down the plot of the movie that he has just seen, often for the first time. This is obviously not Brad's first time seeing Some Like It Hot. Brad, had you watched this movie in the interim between the first time we watched it and now?
I don't believe I had.
I haven't either. And it's hilarious because I didn't watch it because I had been kind of let down by it in season 1. And I was like, man, that movie's not as good as I remembered it being. And I'm so glad I waited until now to watch it again because I was an idiot. This movie's incredible.
Yeah, dude. And we'll keep talking about how incredible it is. Let's do some Brad Explains.
All right, Brad, you have 60 seconds on the clock to break down the plot of this movie. Once again, this is a spoiler-filled discussion of Some Like It Hot, so if you don't want it spoiled for you, go watch the movie and come back to listen to Brad break it all down now. Brad, 1 minute and go.
Joe and Jerry are out-of-luck musicians who are completely out of a job, out of clothes, out of an apartment, and in looking for a job, the only thing they're able to get is to cross-dress as women and join a women's band going down to Florida. The reason they go on this is because they witnessed the St. Valentine's Day massacre by Spats, a stand-in for Al Capone, who's out looking to kill them because he doesn't want to leave any witnesses. They make their way down to Florida, fall in love with Marilyn Monroe, and find the trouble hot on their tails as it comes down to Florida. The mobsters come down to Florida for a mobsters gathering. Hijinks ensue. I don't even know where else to go. I didn't know if that was the end or not. I was like, and? That's about it, man.
Hijinks do ensue. All right, man, where would you like to start today? Do you want to start with the Billy Wilder of it all, or do you want to start with the performances?
I want to start with the Billy Wilder of it all, but before that, I want to hear just one of your favorite lines from the film.
One of my favorite lines from the film.
And if you need a second to think of one, I can go first.
Oh, please, go ahead.
When Sugar is talking to the oil baron Shell Jr., he's talking about water polo. And Sugar says, water polo? Isn't that terribly dangerous? And he goes, I'll say, I had 2 ponies drowned under me.
I don't know, man. That whole scene is hilarious. I just love the first time, because he has that basket of shells at his feet and he has to improvise with it. And then he's like, after all, that's why we named the oil company. The way he just reaches in and pulls the shell up.
But when the shell is a perfect mimic.
Shell oil, yeah. I think any line that Jack Lemmon has, and the ones, the obvious one is the last line of the film, but everything from the time they first start cross-dressing until the end of the movie, the one that I keep thinking of is the recurring bit of "you tore off one of my chests."
Yep,
it's a great little bit that they have. We're gonna get into all these lines. I've got a ton of them highlighted here, Brad.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I love when they're at Polikoff's office trying to get a job, and he's like, what do you mean? Do you need to be a hunchback or something? And he's like, it's not your backs I'm worried about.
All right, yeah, let's start with the Billy Wilder of it all then, because like you said, this is, I think, Wilder at his best with just straight comedy. And once again, really pushing the boundaries and really pushing the envelope of what you could get away with in movies like this. There's obviously, I mean, it's a movie about cross-dressing. There's just so much sex in this movie that is implied through the dialogue. And
it is quite salacious.
Quite salacious. But it's hilarious. And even one of the first scenes that Tony Curtis and Marilyn Monroe have together when they're on the train and they go into one of the bathrooms with the block of ice, and she's talking about what the tenor sax does to her. And she says all you have to do is play 8 bars of "Come to Me, My Melancholy Baby," and I come to them. And then it cuts back to Tony Curtis like you do what now? It's just, I can't believe they got away with some of it, but it's so good. The innuendos in this movie are just second to none, man.
Yeah, they are over the top. And I mean, did Wilder have 17 affairs? Is that where this movie sprung from?
I don't know, man.
Because there, for a movie in the 1950s, and I know it's 1959, but for a movie from the 50s, Bob, this thing is raunchy.
Mm-hmm. Really raunchy.
2020 standards, not so much, but even watching it now, you're like, oh man, how did they get away with this?
Mm-hmm. I don't know if I can go any longer. And I know, we're still in the Billy Wilder discussion, but I don't know if I can go any longer without talking about Jack Lemmon. So Jack Lemmon gets nominated for an Oscar for this movie, and it's well-deserved. And the thing about Lemmon's performance that I think is so revelatory is that it's the performance that calls the most attention to itself. And so you kind of expect to hold that against it. Like, you know, Brad, you and I really like the show How I Met Your Mother. And I think that, like, it's amazing what Neil Patrick Harris is able to do as Barney. But there's also episodes where it's like, this is too much Barney. This is like, it's a character that is a caricature. And I think that Lemon's character is always running the risk of becoming that. But there were entire scenes last night, because I've seen this movie so many times now, I know what's coming, that I just watched Jack Lemmon in the background of a scene, or like in a scene where it's all three of the leads and he's the one that's like kind of in the back, reacting to everybody else. That dude is on all the time. And it's like, it's not just when he's making goofy faces and being like the prototype for what Jim Carrey would become. It's just that he is wholly invested as an actor in everything that's going on around him. And I say all that to say, there are so many lines that I'm like, literally, I have the Billy Wilder script pulled up in front of me. And they're really funny lines on the page, but only in the mouth of Jack Lemmon do they become classics. Do you know what I mean?
Yes. No, 100%. Dude, honestly, I never thought about the Jack Lemmon leading into Jim Carrey. Like, all I can think about is Jim Carrey in, like, Liar Liar or Bruce Almighty. Like, that's incredible.
But see, here's the thing is, like, if you don't get, and I know you hate Eternal Sunshine, but, like, if you just tell Jim Carrey to dress in drag and go wild, then you get the moments where Jack Lemmon's going over the top. But the great thing about this Jack Lemmon performance is that he also can be really subdued at times. And it's like, that's the brilliance of this performance, is that it spans the entire spectrum.
Yeah, 100%. The same way he does in The Apartment, right?
Exactly.
I think here, though, what I love about Jack Lemmon is when you know the production quandaries that Wilder was facing working with Marilyn Monroe. Like, that could have been the 37th take, and Jack Lemmon is still giving it his all.
100%.
You know what I mean? And I think that's what impresses me so much about his performance, is that he was so professional that he's like going balls to the wall on every single take.
So there's a scene in particular, and we talked about this in our season 1 review of this movie. I think we actually went a little too heavy on like the Marilyn Monroe troubled history thing in season 1. Even though I feel like we were very sympathetic, but there's so much more to talk about with this movie. But the very famous scene that was so complicated for them to shoot was the one after Shell Oil Jr. breaks up with her and she comes in the room and just says, "Where's the bourbon?" "Where's that bourbon?" is the line. She could not get the line, "Where's that bourbon?" correct. They'd had to do like 100 takes of it. And you're absolutely right, man. Like, they cut back to Tony Curtis and Jack Lemmon and watching him. And if you know what his character is going through in the moment, he's mad that Tony Curtis has just given his diamond bracelet away to Marilyn Monroe. And so watching the frustration on his face, and whether the frustration that he had with the scene is spilling into that, I have no idea. But like, for him to be putting that much effort into basically being set dressing in that scene, it's incredible. Like, I can't imagine how physically exhausting the performance had to be, because like we've been saying, he's just on all the time.
Yeah, I feel like we need to do just a series of Jack Lemmon films.
Oh, I'd love that.
I would so enjoy just going through some of his work, because we've only seen The Apartment and Some Like It Hot.
I don't know if we've done another Jack Lemmon movie. No.
Yeah, we need to get on it.
Absolutely. All right, man. Well, let's talk about the other two leads. I mean, we've dabbled in Billy Wilder a little bit. Let's talk Tony Curtis. I mean, what are your impressions of him? Because if we've only ever done 2 Jack Lemmon movies, I hate to say it, but we've only done this one for Tony Curtis. So having seen this same performance 2 times now, what do you make of it?
Yeah, I think that Tony Curtis is exactly what this movie needs opposite Jack Lemmon. Like he plays that perfect, powerful woman that even though he's not a woman, that like you need next to the silliness of Daphne, played by Jack Lemmon. And so I think that Tony Curtis brings a lot to the role. And I think that he brings a level of professionalism alongside Jack Lemmon that I think he does a really great job of corralling things and moving them along well.
I think one of the things that really struck me watching this movie this time through is the physicality of both of these two male leads. Because Jack Lemmon is very much doing, it almost kind of reminds me of Singing in the Rain. And you've got Gene Kelly doing his thing, and then you've got Donald O'Connor who's doing like the pratfalls and the make 'em laugh. And they're both these very fluid dancers. And I feel like Jack Lemmon and Tony Curtis are pretty much like spot on replicas of that, because Jack Lemmon is doing a lot of the hilarious, vaudevillian kind of physicality with the tangos and everything else. But then you watch Tony Curtis and he's like scaling a building and sliding down banisters. And it's almost not, you don't even really think about how athletic the guy is, but he uses it so fluidly to his advantage in this movie. And it really helps because he's the character that's having to do more quick changes than anybody else. Like he's dressed as a woman and then he has to be dressed as Shell Oil Jr. And you get the little gag where he's still wearing the earrings, and he so perfectly flows in and out of all of the three different characters he's playing in this movie. I was really impressed with this performance.
And can we talk about for a second how beautifully Wilder sets up the geography of the hotel?
Mm-hmm.
Like the way he uses them climbing out of the window and going in front of other, rooms, and the gangsters are in the one room. And it's like they do it enough times that you, the viewer, feel like you could climb the roof and get up to Daphne and Geraldine. No, that's what he's supposed to be called. Josephine, thank you. And Josephine's room. Wilder just does such a beautiful job there, and it's something that you don't really think about as you're watching it.
Yeah, I think Wilder, at this point of his career, really knows how to milk the shot selection and the way the camera moves and the editing of this movie. I'm thinking all the way back to the first scene of the movie. Like the establishing moments of the movie are a hearse driving through Chicago that begins getting chased by a cop car. And then you find out that the hearse is being driven by some seedy characters because out of nowhere, they pull some Tommy guns out and they're, shooting machine guns at the cops. And it's this shootout in the streets. And they cut back to the hearse, and the coffin in the hearse is just like leaking liquid. And you're like, oh, that's gross, because at that point, as an audience member, you're still thinking this is an embalmed body. And the great visual gag is they lift the lid up off of the coffin, the casket, and it's smuggling a whole bunch of booze. And that's when you get the title card that says Chicago 1929. And you understand, like, oh, it's the end of Prohibition. It is, it's such a great reveal, because until that point, like, I'm sure, yes, these vehicles looked old to people in 1959, but, you don't necessarily know exactly when the movie's set until that big reveal, and he reveals it on a gag. Every single thing that he does in this movie is a fantastic punchline. It's all build and then the release of a punchline.
Yeah, and even the opening, 10 minutes of the movie don't really have much of Curtis and Lemmon, but the whole scene of the police chief, being briefed on how to get in and ordering, liquor, and they're like, we only sell coffee here. We have 80 proof coffee and gin coffee. It's just every little piece of this movie is funny.
Yeah.
And not just a little bit funny. Like, I'm laughing every 2 or 3 minutes in this film.
I was shocked at how much I laughed out loud at this movie because, again, I've seen it so many times that I know all the lines now. And so for this time around, it was more like the line readings, and then it was the little physical moments in between lines. It was like, when they're on the train and they're first practicing as a band.
Yes.
And Sweet Sue, the conductor, tells the two of them to like pick it up and spice it up a little bit. And they cut back, and Jack Lemmon on that stupid bull fiddle, he's just going, dun, 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 dun. It is the funniest. It's such a stupid movie, Brad. Like, nothing about this should work. It is an absolutely ridiculous premise that Billy Wilder and everyone involved knows is ridiculous. And that's why it's funny.
Yeah, no, to quote one of the best comedies of all time, they easily everybody turns it up to 11.
Uh-huh.
every performance, every bit of cinematography, every bit of sound design. Let's drink this Maker's 46, Bob, and then we'll come back to just spouting its praise even more effusively.
All right, let's do it, Brad. All right, everybody. So today we are checking out Maker's Mark 46. This is a bourbon, Brad, that I did not realize when we first drank it back in 2019, that had only been released in 2010. So obviously it had been around for almost a decade by the time we tried it, but I guess I just assumed that this brand was much, much older than that, or this label in particular. Yeah. So this is Maker's Mark Bourbon, which is one of, if not the world's best-selling wheated bourbon. And when we talk about wheated bourbon, what that means is that after corn, which is the dominant grain in bourbon, the next most used grain is wheat. And typically this gives it a softer nose. It's not as spicy or aggressive as rye tends to be. Brad and I always get notes like cherry on wheated bourbons. And honestly, Brad, I think if I'm being frank, even after drinking as many whiskeys as we have, I think wheated bourbon is probably still my favorite kind of bourbon.
Yeah, wheated bourbon consistently has just such a nice flavor profile. And I'll be honest with you, man, Maker's 46 is falling right in line with that.
Yeah, I mean, before we dive into the nose and everything else, I'm reading directly off of the website of Breaking Bourbon. We've plugged them before, but the thing I like to do with some of these bourbon websites, Brad, is we're not competing with Breaking Bourbon. They do a completely different thing than we do. And it's super helpful because we get a lot of our information about the process of how these things are made from Breaking Bourbon. And so in their review of Maker's 46, they break the process down like this. Maker's 46 starts off as standard Maker's Mark, which they say is a wheated bourbon made in batches of less than 1,000 gallons. And then 10 heavily seared French oak staves are placed into the just emptied Maker's Mark barrels, which are then refilled and returned to the warehouses to finish aging for an undisclosed amount of time, estimated to be 2 to 3 additional months. So they stick a bunch more wood in there, and it's super heavily charred to give it some more flavor. And Brad, I gotta be honest, man, I think just in terms of looking at the color of it, it seems to be working.
Are you trying to channel your inner Billy Wilder and use the most sexual innuendo you can?
They stick a bunch more wood in there.
Just stick it right in.
The color. I'm talking about the color, Brad. Come on.
Oh, I'm so sorry. So sorry. Yeah, the color is gorgeous. It's just this really nice ambery walnut looking. It's beautiful, Bob. Big fan of this whiskey.
I like that you just used 8 different shades.
Yeah,
it's oak and it's mahogany and it's walnut and it's maple and all the woods.
Cherry.
All right, Brad, I am trying this live on air. I will be frank with you when I say I have not tried Maker's 46 since our first recording of Some Like It Hot.
17 years ago?
A million years ago. I know you've tried it again already, so I'm going to let you give your nosing notes first while I take mine.
Yeah, Bob, this is genuinely an incredible nose. For me, I got the first note I took, and it morphed after a little bit, but the first thing I said was grape drink. This is not grape juice, it is grape drink. From there, I got some amaretto. There's vanilla coming through. It almost turned into like one of those fudge bars you eat as a kid. And then after I let it sit in the glass for a while, some brown sugar notes really started coming through with a decent amount of a nutmeg spice. Mm-hmm. I think this is an incredible, really nice, sweet, and yet a little bit complex nose that I gave a 9 out of 10 to.
Wow. All right. So I will say this. I'm slightly lower than you on the nose. And it's because I poured this out right when we started this segment that we're recording right now. And so it's been between 5 and 10 minutes. It is just now starting to settle down in the glass. And what I noticed as I look at Breaking Bourbon's, data about this is that the mash bill is 70% corn, 16% wheat, 14% barley. And so the barley is almost as, equivalent to the wheat in this. And at first I was like, this smells a little bit more aggressive than I thought it would be. And it had a very distinct scent to it. And I think the barley made itself known right off the bat. But as it settles down, it is settling into that nice weeded bourbon. This one almost has like a chocolatey kind of smell to me, which is not something I'm typically used to getting on weeded bourbon. But then it settles down into like this beautiful Coca-Cola effervescence with a ton of caramel and cherry underneath it. It's almost like a sundae, Brad. I just imagine like a caramel sundae with a big fake ass red maraschino cherry on top of it. It's just beautiful.
As the I don't remember if it's Marilyn or just one of the other girls in the band. They wake up Tony Curtis and go,
Maraschino.
You got a maraschino cherry on ya?
So yeah, I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10 on the nose. I'm excited to see where this goes.
Yeah, on the palate, I got a nice bit of cherry cola that came through. Like you said, you're talking about those cola notes on the nose. A ton of caramel on the palate. And then the longer I drank it, the more I got like a really flaky buttered croissant. And I absolutely loved it. I ended up giving it an 8.5 out of 10 on the palate.
I'm going to tell you right up front, I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10 on the palate. And I think, Brad, that if I can knock this on anything, I don't think they should use this much barley in the mash bill. Like, I am getting some really heavily ashy notes on this that I get from, especially from American-made malt whiskey. Like, you know, we've had some craft whiskeys that are like American single malt that they have that almost like cigarette ash thing going on. And I can't tell if it's the influence of these French oak staves or if it's the barley in the mash bill. But I really do think at 14%, this has a little bit more barley in it than I would like to see. And it almost competes with the fantastic corn and wheat notes. You know, we tried Maker's Cask Strength a couple seasons back, Brad. And that was like one of my highest rated whiskeys I've ever had. It is like, for me, it's like the platonic ideal of this. And I think that it, you know, I'm assuming it has the same mash bill as this, but it doesn't have that extra aged, you know, oak staves in it. So I think the combo of those staves with the barley is tipping this just a little bit more bitter and ashy than I would like, but I'm still going to give it an 8 out of 10.
Bob, you just spent 80% of the time talking about why you took 2 points off versus the 20% of the time of why you gave it 8 points.
Yep.
Nailed it.
Welcome to the Film and Whiskey Podcast, Brad. Where have you been for 10 seasons?
I don't know, man. The finish here has a lot of charred oak, which is unsurprising for the amount of wood that they just shoved into this barrel.
I was going to say, you don't say, huh?
But it's also got some nice butter toffee, some nice cherry cola that sticks around. And then for me, honestly, the note that lingered longest was just a really nice, simple vanilla. So I give it an 8 out of 10 on the finish. You know, I kind of came down from the nose to the taste to the finish. But coming down from a 9 to an 8, this is a daggone good whiskey, Bob.
Yeah, I'm really struggling, Brad, because I don't think this is a bad finish. I just don't think that it's like for me. And I want to give it a 6.5. I think it's better than a 6.5, but all of those things I said about the taste carry through to the finish. That the influence of the barley and of that heavily charred oak is really taking this in an almost bitter place for me on the finish. I'm going to give it a 7 out of 10, but I think you have to have a very specific kind of flavor wheelhouse that you like to operate in to dig this finish.
Oh, yeah, like a good palate.
That's what it is. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Good. The balance here is incredible. I think that there's really nice flavors throughout the experience. There's just enough spiciness to give it a little bit of complexity. I gave it a 9 out of 10 on balance, Bob.
Wow. Yeah, I'm definitely not that high. I don't like this nearly as much as you do, Brad. And if our scores so far don't indicate it, I think this one will. This is a pretty well-balanced whiskey. I just think that I like the regular Makers a little bit better than this, and especially the cask strength version. I'll give this a 7 out of 10 on balance.
Yeah, and at the time of recording, this is costing you, in the beautiful state of Ohio, $37.
$37. Okay. That's an interesting price point because, you know, at like 35 and it's at 94 proof. And when I hear 94 proof, I always think Elijah Craig. That's the one I know that's 94 proof. And that's always been about $35 a bottle. So I think it makes sense for it to be 37 because it has an extra aging to go along with it.
All that extra wood in there.
All that wood and those 3 extra months, man.
Yeah.
I don't think 37 is a bad value, but I also don't love this whiskey. So, I'll give it a 6.5 on value.
I think it's an 8.5, Bob.
Wow.
I think that this is a really solid wheated whiskey that has a little bit of something extra added in with the French oak staves. To me, if you're getting this for under $40, I think that that's kind of a steal. So yeah, this is easily an 8.5 for me.
What's that bringing your final score out to, Brad?
Bob, I am at a 43 out of 50.
Oh my gosh, a 43.
I'm a big fan here,
Wow,
Bob.
Clearly.
And you're the one who likes wheated whiskeys.
Here's the funny thing. I don't feel like I like this whiskey that much, and I'm still coming out to a 36.5, which says quite a bit. If you take the worst possible conclusion on this and it's still in the range where we would be recommending it, I think that says that this is a darn good whiskey.
Yeah.
It does not appeal to my palate that much at all. And I'm still coming out to a 36.5. That's bringing us to a 79.5 out of 100 or a 39.75 out of 50. It's very, very close to breaking that 40 mark, which is rarefied air on the Film and Whiskey podcast.
Yeah. Oh, actually, I gave it a 9 out of 10 on values, so that puts me at a 43.5. I'm pretty sure we're at a 40 out of 50,
We're at a
Bob.
40. Brad, we were just talking about this before we pressed record, but can you share the score that we initially gave this way back in season 1?
Bro, we were so harsh with the whiskey. I gave it, and remember that back in season 1, we didn't have the value category, so we were scoring them out of 40. I gave it a 17 out of 40, and you gave it a 22 out of 40.
Yeah, I feel like if we just didn't love something, we were like, this is a 5 or below on each category.
Yeah. Yep.
Which I'm looking forward to our re-review of Basil Hayden's one of these days because I don't know where that's going to land, but
it'll just be fun to trash that as well. We trashed it then. We'll trash it now.
So fair to say, Maker's 46 has been redeemed in the eyes of the Film and Whiskey podcast.
Yeah, 100%.
All right, man, let's get back into talking about Some Like It Hot. What do you say?
Yeah, let's get to it. All right, everybody, that was Maker's 46, a whiskey that will easily go down in the annals of Film and Whiskey podcasts as one of the best whiskeys ever made.
Yeah, Brad, it's certainly going down in your annals as one of the best ever made, but honestly, a really good whiskey. Not many notes on that one.
Yeah, no, great whiskey, and one that I am so happy that we're revisiting season 1, Bob.
Oh my gosh, for so many reasons.
Yeah, one of the reasons being which we never did 2 facts and a falsehood back then.
We did not have 2 facts and a falsehood, and so, Brad, you know what time it is now?
Time for Canada's favorite segment.
Brad is gonna try to stump you, Bob, to our right and what is wrong. 2 facts and a falsehood.
That's right. 2 facts and a falsehood. This is the part of the podcast where Brad presents 3 items to me as fact about the making of this movie, one of which is a complete fabrication and lie, and I have to decide which one is the falsehood. Brad, it's been a long time since we've looked at any research about Some Like It Hot. It's been 9 seasons, so you're catching me in the midst of a cold streak here. So go ahead and hit me with your 2 facts and a falsehood.
Fact number 1, Jack Lemmon nearly broke his wrist during a take on the train when he falls out of the bunk, but was told by Wilder that Monroe had taken up enough of their time that he couldn't afford to miss any time for Lemmon. Fact number 2, years after the film's release, a movie reviewer was talking to Tony Curtis about Josephine and asked why he was so much more feminine than Jack Lemmon's Daphne. Curtis explained that he was so scared to be playing a woman, or a man pretending to be one, that his tightly wound body language could be read as demure and shy, traditionally feminine traits, whereas Lemmon, who was completely unbothered and, quote, ran out of his dressing room screaming like the Queen of May, kept much more of his masculine body language. Fact number 3, a male cabaret dancer named Barbette tried to teach Tony Curtis and Jack Lemmon to walk in heels. After about a week, Lemmon declined his help, saying he didn't want to walk like a woman, but like a man trying to walk like a woman.
I feel like I remember fact number 3 from our first episode on this, Brad. I feel like I remember that. The other 2, I have no idea. Number 2 sounds plausible, and so does number 1. I mean, Marilyn Monroe did eat up everyone's time on this movie. I'm going to say that number 1 is the Falsehood.
Bob, you are 100% correct.
Hey!
Number 1 was the Falsehood.
Man, that was really a toss-up. I almost went with 2. But I really love that story about Tony Curtis. That's pretty great, because I think part of the reason this movie works is that they are not playing the same type of character. Like,
yes,
even when they're in drag, one of them has to be a little more composed. One of them, like, Jack Lemmon is clearly trying to sleep with Marilyn Monroe as a woman. Like, he doesn't even care at that point. And I think that's the great thing about it, is that his horniness just overrides the fact that he's now supposed to be a woman. And Tony Curtis is the one that's constantly having to rein him back in. And it's only when Tony Curtis starts dressing like a different kind of man that Jack Lemmon then has to try to rein him back in. It's a great, the dynamic between those two guys is pitch perfect. And that's the only reason this movie works.
Well, and the back and forth that they have, like, from the very start, they set up Jack Lemmon to be the responsible one, right? Mm-hmm. Like, he wants to fix his messed up tooth, and Tony Curtis wants to go spend it on the ponies.
Right.
And then they just slowly, like, vacillate back and forth between who's the responsible one and who's being the ridiculous one. And it just works. Like, I don't know if there's many characters that could be tossed to and fro this way and still be legible by the end of the movie. Mm-hmm. And yet somehow these two actors make it work.
We have not really talked about Marilyn Monroe to this point. I think she's fantastic in this movie. She's given kind of a nothing character, but the really great thing, and I don't know if she would have realized it. I don't even know if Billy Wilder would have known it in the moment, but he wrote her such a great tragic character, and his tragic characters are his best characters. Like, you can see the direct through line from Sabrina to this character to Fran Kubelik in The Apartment the year after this. And again, we kind of touched on this with one of our other Wilder reviews. I don't know if it was Stalag 17. I think it was Stalag 17, because I was talking about how there's a scene in that movie where Animal thinks that one of his, like, bunkmates is a woman. And then when he gets disappointed, he gets really sad. And I felt like Wilder really should have played up that moment more. And by the time you get to this movie, Wilder's, like, leaning into that. And the tragedy and the comedy coincide so well. I think part of the reason this movie works on a level that's not just, silly, goofy comedy is that the last few minutes of the movie, Marilyn Monroe is, like, I don't want to say suicidal, because she's not threatening it in this movie, but, like, heavily drinking, super sad. And then you get the great shot of Tony Curtis, who's trying to flee, wandering into, where the band is performing, and she's singing the song, I'm Through with Love. And Wilder just puts the camera on his face. And it's a guy in drag, unconvincingly. And you are, like, emotionally invested in this moment of him having this heartbreaking realization about her.
After you've been laughing your butt off the entire movie.
Right. And I think
it comes out of nowhere.
And to bring it all back to Marilyn Monroe, I think the beautiful and the tragic thing about her is that she had such a troubled emotional life that I think she can play that kind of character with so much ease. And I almost hate to praise her for it, because you can see, like, the Marilyn Monroe persona and her fighting against it kind of bleeding into this performance, but it makes the performance work so well.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, without meaning to, I'm sure, it feels like Marilyn Monroe was method acting here. The ability to take her offstage problems on stage and use them for the character, you have to admire the performance that she gives, despite all the stuff that she was going through. And it feels like she transforms a lot of that pain and uses it on screen when she feels like she has been spurned.
Yeah. Well, and I think you can also see, Wilder's giving those kind of winking moments, just like he does with the Cary Grant quote that I gave earlier, like when he's talking about no one talks like that. You can tell that he's letting Marilyn Monroe play with the Marilyn Monroe persona a little bit here. That like everyone thinks she's a dumb blonde, so we're gonna pretend like she's a dumb blonde, but she's way smarter than that. But is she way smarter than that? And you can kind of see Monroe like winking through that whole thing throughout the movie. But even as she's doing that, she's convincingly playing this character. I think it really is a great performance that kind of flies under the radar a little bit.
Yeah, no, it 100% does. And we talked about this in season 1. She's just a magnet for the camera.
Mm-hmm.
Like her personality is so bright and so sincere and so bubbly that you can't help but be attracted to her. And not just like the traditional being attracted to someone, like your eyes are just drawn to her. She just sucks every bit of air out of the room into herself, and you can't help but watch her.
Yeah.
And she is funny too. Like the way she delivers some of her lines next to Jack Lemmon, she is truly a great actress in this film.
I mean, and then you just have like the obvious, this is for the fans, but it's also like we're all in on the joke. Like the first time she climbs up into Jack Lemmon's, what do you call it? Not bunk, but on the train.
Mm-hmm.
And she's like, let me rub your feet. There you go. And she's like bouncing up and down. And you just see like everything's bouncing. And then Jack Lemmon starts doing the I'm a girl, I'm a girl, I'm a girl again. It is
yep.
Of course they're going to make jokes about Marilyn Monroe's boobs, but like, I mean, why would you not do that in a movie like this? And the fact that everyone's in on the joke, like it makes it less, I hate to say it like this, it makes it less creepy. It makes it less icky, almost 70 years on from the making of this movie.
Yeah. Yeah, Marilyn is really incredible in this film. We haven't talked about anybody else. Is there anybody else on the acting roster that you were impressed with?
I mean, the obvious one here is Joe E. Brown, right? Like,
oh yeah.
The funny thing, I'm looking at the cast of this movie last night as I'm watching it, and I think it's really funny how Monroe and Tony Curtis and Jack Lemmon are all essentially the same age when they make this movie. They're all 33, 34. And I was really shocked to see that the actress that plays Sweet Sue, her name is Joan Shawley, also 33 years old when she made this movie. And I feel like they made her look like she was 50. And so like, poor woman, I'm really sorry for you, but I couldn't believe that she was the same age as everybody else when they made this movie.
Yeah, 100%. She looks way, way older.
Before we jump into talking about Joe E. Brown, who is just incredible in this movie, I want to talk for a second about George Raft, who plays Spats, the head gangster. There's a ton of in-jokes in this movie about George Raft, and he was a really famous actor in the late 30s and 40s. And I guess kind of the legend of George Raft is he's known for all of the roles that he turned down in Hollywood. Like, I think we mentioned it when we did our Casablanca episode, but he turned down the role that Bogart played in Casablanca. And there's like other really, I mean, like in the 5-year span, he turned down like 8 classic movies in a row. And he just he made terrible choices with that. And it's not like he was making bad movies, but he just missed out on the opportunity to be the guy we remember. And I feel like Bogart owes his career to George Raft in a lot of ways. But there are a ton of references to all of the gangster movies that George Raft made throughout the years. Like when they all sit down at the banquet at the end of the movie and he calls one of his henchmen an idiot. He's got a grapefruit in his hand. That's a reference to an early gangster movie called The Public Enemy with Jimmy Cagney. And the famous scene in that movie is that he takes a grapefruit and smashes it into his girlfriend's face at one point. Like it's almost like Sunset Boulevard, where Wilder is using the person's career as a visual gag on screen, but it doesn't seem as mean-spirited this time around. Because again, everyone's in on the joke in this movie.
He has a great role in this movie of being the most serious person in the movie. And it allows the movie to have just enough movement to keep things flowing. I think that they could get lost in the comedy if not for the driving force of the plot. And I think this is an example of how a plot device can really help move a movie forward and not let it just languish in the comedy.
I want to ask you about that a little bit. Do you think that the movie is successful in the way that it uses that, I don't want to call it a framing device, but it's almost like something has to get them in drag. Something has to keep them in drag. Something has to take them away from whatever the danger is. And so they concoct this whole story about, the Chicago mob and this guy standing in for Al Capone, but it really kind of bookends the movie. So they show up in drag for the first time at like the 25-minute mark. And then the gangsters don't show up until the final 25 to 30 minutes of the movie. And so you've got a solid hour and 10 minutes or whatever in between where they really don't talk about it at all. It's just, the situational comedy of them being women, you're trying to be women, but they're really men. Do you think that having the gangster stuff bookending the movie works, or should they have done something different with it?
No, I think it worked perfectly because it gives you enough time throughout the middle of the film to just really have fun with the characters and get to see them be idiots and be funny. And then at the end of the film, it kind of draws things back forward and moves it to a nice, tidy conclusion. Like this movie is like on the dot 2 hours, probably like an hour and 55 with, credits and stuff. And I think it's like just right for this film. If it was any longer, it would drag. But because it's a nice, tight 2 hours and the gangster plot kind of keeps it that way, I think it works.
All right, Brad, I think it is time for us to get to our final segment of the day, which we call Let's Make It a Double.
We're near the end of the episode, so thanks for listening to the Film and Whiskey Show. Let's pair another film with this one, even if it's a struggle. It's our final segment of the day, now let's make it a double.
Let's Make It a Double is the part of the show where we pick a movie to pair up with this one to make the perfect double feature. Brad, what would you pair Some Like It Hot with?
Man, I have not watched this movie in a very long time. So I might be a little out of whack here. It is an older comedy, not nearly as old as Some Like It Hot, but I remember it having really witty lines and a great duo at the top, like Lemon and Curtis here. I'm going to pair this with Dirty Rotten Scoundrels.
Oh, wow. That's a great one, man.
Yeah. I mean, it's Michael Caine and Steve Martin. Yep. And they are two con men that are going after the same mark. And the way that they interact with one another is just brilliant. And it kind of reminded me of Jack Lemmon and Tony Curtis.
I think as I watched this movie, I was once again having an existential crisis about why it's so hard for me to give a movie like this a 10 out of 10. And I feel like the snooty guy in me is always like, for a movie to be a 10 out of 10, it has to get at something deeper about the human experience, and it can't just be silly. But honestly, dude, like, this is as good as a movie like this can get. And as I started thinking about it, I was like, I am also too harsh on another movie that we did way back at the beginning of this podcast. And that movie is Anchorman. And I think Anchorman is an almost perfect pairing with this movie because it is about a man who acts like a child, who is thrust into the world of women that he doesn't know how to comprehend. It plays up the ridiculousness of the costumes of those men, and it allows you to laugh at, a time that has gone by. And I think, like, honestly, Anchorman is a spiritual sibling to Some Like It Hot in a lot of ways that I didn't really realize until last night. But man, oh man, if those aren't two absolutely pitch perfect silly comedies.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, you could watch Some Like It Hot, Dirty Rotten Scoundrels, Anchorman, go from old to new and have an absolutely hilarious evening.
Our first triple feature recommendation. I love it.
Yeah. Yeah, man.
All right, man, let's do final scores. I've been talking about mine the entire podcast, so it will surprise no one, but this is a 10 out of 10. And I don't really know how else to say it, man. Like, it just does not get better than this from a writing standpoint. I mean, we've talked about the lines, we've talked about the visual gags, but just structurally, you know, I saw when this movie was 2 hours long, I'm like, this might drag a little bit. No, every scene goes on exactly as long as it needs to go on. And there was like no fat on this. And it also didn't get repetitive, which was something I was really worried about, was that it was going to try to do the same gag 15 times. It doesn't do that at all. It keeps putting its characters in new situations that they have to figure out. It's constantly introducing new complications into the mix that they have to overcome. It is just an absolutely perfect script, and it makes for a perfect movie.
Yeah, the same way the mobsters bookended the movie, I'm going to bookend this episode by saying this is a 10 out of 10 movie, Bob. Like, I can't tell you how badly you need to go watch Some Like It Hot. Like, if you just need to sit down for 2 hours and just laugh nonstop, I can't tell you a better movie to watch.
Brad, as you think about all the comedies that we've done on the show, so, I mean, When Harry Met Sally, and This Is Spinal Tap, and The Princess Bride,
Monty Python and
the Holy Grail, where would this rank for you among them?
Oh, wow. I love me some When Harry Met Sally. I think this is my favorite comedy we've ever watched.
Wow.
I'm trying to think of any other ones I would have given a 10 out of 10 to. I know that we gave Spinal Tap and Monty Python a 10 out of 10, but I don't know, man. Those feel like less of movies than this does. Does that make sense? Like, those are so far into, I don't know, man. I mean, we would talk about certain like dramatic movies, like let's talk about Tree of Life. Like, Tree of Life goes so deep into form that it feels like a different movie than anything else you'd watch. And I feel similarly about Monty Python and Spinal Tap. Like, it goes so deep into the form of weird, serious sketch comedy in a movie that they sit on a different realm for me. Whereas, like, Some Like It Hot is a movie.
It's cinematic.
Yeah, it's cinematic. It's one of the funniest movies I've ever seen. Yeah, I think I would put it up there.
All right, so it's 10s across the board from us, but we would like to know what you think. Have you seen Some Like It Hot? How does it hold up for you after 65, 70 years? You can let us know on our social media accounts, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, or TikTok @FilmWhiskey.
Or jump onto our Discord. We are on there every single day talking to you guys, the fans of the Film and Whiskey podcast. If you want to join the conversation, there's a link to the Discord at the end of every single one of our show notes.
Brad, you've just mentioned what next week's movie is. We are taking a very hard turn into the world of Terrence Malick, and we are checking out The Tree of Life next week.
The only movie funnier than Some Like It Hot.
All right, so join us for that existential crisis that we're going to have next week. Until then, I'm Bob Book.
I'm Brad G.
And we'll see you next time.